Boy, have I got a story for you. I'll never forget that night. The night the strange visitor come to my door. I won't forget the way the sea roared around the island, or the passion with which this place refuses to be tamed. The sea, for me, has always been like the lover I can't quite reach, a ceaseless, painful yearning. I've always been tormented by something wild, something fathomless deep down inside. But on that night, the storm matched my mood. At the time, I didn't know what drove me to this bleak hillside in the Hebridean Isles that lie off the west coast of Scotland. Though I was painfully aware that I needed to escape my family. Most lads of 16 wouldn't find comfort retreating to a fisherman's croft, alone on a barren, windy Isle of Erad. Few could stand the isolation when they've just come from the mayhem of Edinburgh. I know many would have been afraid of the raw power that howled at the eaves and shook the very foundations of my cottage that night. But I'm different somehow, and I knew that, not that I like it, or even understand it. It was midnight that night, and seductive sounds of the elements enfolded me, whispering in the sweet lashings of the sea, the bellowing of the thunder and lightning, and the hissing torrents of rain. All was music to my nameless longings the night the visitor called. There's no electricity out here, you see. I could say there was plenty bouncing off the knolls and the canes, but none captive. So all I had for light was a hurricane lamp, a flashlight and a few candles. And I remember a God Almighty crack of thunder and lightning jottering down my spine. The door blew open off its hinges and a sheet of sleet soaked me to the skin. It also tore the light from the hook and extinguished the candles. And in that sharp instant, that flash of light, I thought I glimpsed a small figure, not 5 feet tall, just standing there in the rain. Afraid that I might be beginning to imagine things, I fumbled around for my flashlight. "Are you alright?" I asked. There was heavy silence that made the hair on my head creep. I thought I'd seen a wee person with long dreadlocks hanging down past naked shoulders to bare legs which gleamed with rain. A child in trouble, perhaps, but I couldn't find the damned torch. Then the door blew shut and I felt a cold presence slide past. The creature was in the room and I couldn't see. The smell of the sea came with it and I felt the chill of fear as I groped around my fireplace in search of the matches that I kept there. I found them and struck one. It lit up a small female face with 2 huge round eyes that were fixed on the mantelpiece where I display my relics that I bring in from the sea. Those eerie eyes were riveted on my pride and joy, an unusual shell which I'd stolen from my stepfather's belongings the night I escaped. It emitted a subtle glow in the dark which intrigued me. Those strange eyes which seemed to glow green like a cat's were riveted with such intensity they looked as though her life depended on my shell. The eyes then moved to me and stared, without turning her head. Spooky. She stayed that way as I lit a candle. They were eyes full of fear and curiosity, but the look just wasn't human. Many Highland myths and stories of fairies and otherworld creatures crowded into my mind. In those tales, they aren't sweet, harmless little things, but powerful, dangerous beings in their own right, something mortals must treat with respect and be wary of. Of course, I didn't believe in fairies. This one was human. Perhaps retarded, the poor thing. If she was short of a few cards in a deck, she'd certainly lost her way here. Impossibly, really, because she'd have had to swim across the Narrows from Knockvolligan. The first lesson I'd learnt upon coming here was about the tides, and it was now impassable. Nothing was making sense. I decided she must have been freezing, for under all that wet hair, she appeared to be completely naked. "Are you cold?" I offered a blanket for my couch. She danced away from me, looking terrified, but at the same time appeared to be held to the shell by some invisible thread. I was at a loss to know what to do about her. I'd finally located my flashlight and switched it on. "What's your name?" I asked. She looked alarmed at the sound I'd made and obviously didn't understand. Her hand appeared to be shaking a little as she pointed to objects in the room. The fingers were very long, and I thought the flickering candlelight might have distorted the image, for they looked as though they ended in short, curved claws. Perhaps pointing was her way of conversing, or rather distracting me. The face was so chilling in its beauty, my spine tingled. Was the stark loneliness of winter on Irad already getting to me? Was I losing my mind? To show her I meant no harm, I forced a tight smile. To my relief, she mirrored it, but then I gasped with shock, for her teeth were pointed like a kitten's. Tiny Dolly's teeth, yet sharp, with a little fang on each side. I stepped back, dumbfounded. Then, like lightning, the spook made her move and darted towards the mantelpiece. Grabbing my shell, she dived straight for the door. I leapt out of my stupor and intercepted her. She wasn't going to steal my already stolen treasure. Careful not to touch her, I took hold of the shell and tugged hard. It was then that she emitted a bone-jarring noise, startlingly loud for someone so small, for it made my muscles spasm as through an electric shock were jangling them. The shell slipped from my grip, and like a flash she was out the door and away, clutching it to her heart.
I took off after her, yelling, "Stop! You can have it if you want. Please, please, just stop!" But to no avail. She flew at lightning speed, veering back from the croft around Knockmore, Erin's highest ridge, and past the lookout, straight for Seal Bay without faltering or stumbling once. She must have had eyes of a cat to see in the darkness of that night.
It wasn't an easy run for me, and all through I had a flashlight. I still barked me shins and turned me ankles on Irad's hidden mossy rocks as the slippery rain drenched down. I thought I could catch her, she was so small, but it wasn't so easy. In the bobbing flashlight, her hair flew back, caught by the wind, and I saw she had the figure of a fully fledged young woman, nipped at the waist and broad at the hip. The creature could certainly run, but her gait appeared peculiar. She seemed to swing from the hips as though her legs didn't belong to her.
As she reached the drop at Seal Bay, I thought she'd be forced to stop, but to my horror, she kept rattling over the brink, plummeting down some 30 foot. In a lightning flash, I saw her lift her arms and leap, a graceful swallow dive out and down with a sleek fish-like flick of her spine, and I glimpsed my glowing shell tied in entangled dreadlocks of her hair, dropping through the darkness like a falling star from the sky. And it wasn't the loss of the shell that I was so worried about. I thought it was the loss of human life I was witnessing. Was that beautiful girl indeed mad? I mean, what the hell was going on?